Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at a Husqvarna T540 Mark III. This customer complaint is that the saw is locked up. I don't know that he's got more than a few tanks of gas through this thing. And in fact, when I hooked it up to the computer, it said 6 hours of runtime. So we're looking in the tank here first of all. And he's got mixed fuel in it. That color fuel kind of looks like steel oil, maybe Echo. And I'm going to go through pretty much all the basic checks and be quite thorough about investigating this and documenting it because, I mean, it's probably going to be a warranty claim. It's a brand new saw. And I want to make sure that I check everything off and try and figure out what happened here. So as far as the fuel condition and the fuel line, everything looks good. The clutch side, I mean, the chain's turning. Doesn't appear initially that anything is locked up there. Let's check the starter mechanism itself. No, that seems to work fine. So I guess while we're digging into this, we'll get a chance to look at the new T540 Mark III. It is different than the first two versions for sure. In fact, I'd be surprised if there was more than a handful of part numbers that interchanged. So this air conductor comes off, and you can see that our engine is locked up. I can turn it a few degrees. Let's just pull the other side apart and make sure there's nothing going on over there. The drum spins fine, but the clutch and the crank don't turn. So I want to pull this flywheel off of here. You know, I've seen saws where, and not just saws, a screw in the crankcase will back out and touch the back of the flywheel. Look at this thing's turning farther already now. That's kind of weird. It wasn't turning that much before. Let's just pop this flywheel off of here. Pop. So I'm hoping to find something on the back side of this flywheel. And what do we got? Bupkis. There aren't even any screws on this side that could back out, which is nice. So it doesn't appear to be an external problem. And now we're getting about 180 degrees of rotation. We went from almost nothing to 180 degrees. So what the heck is going on? We're just going to put this flywheel back in place lightly. Let's look under the hood. Yeah, we get a new air filter. And it doesn't look compromised. You know, I would be surprised if this operator was even in here yet, with a little bit of runtime that it has. Trying to look down the throat of the carburetor and see if any of the butterfly plates fell off or there's a screw missing or something. Everything looks normal. Of course, this saw is brand new to me, so there is no normal yet. I haven't been into one of these at all. So that cover right there goes over the top of the spark plug boot, which means you're going to need a T20 Torx in order to remove a spark plug in the field. I'm not so sure I'm thrilled about that. But they must have felt the need to cover up that spark plug boot. Or maybe seal off that case, I'm not sure. Spark plug looks fine, nothing going on there. Try to look down in the cylinder and see if we can see a reason why it's locked up. Alright, we're going to look inside with our camera. And what do we got? Ooh, what's that right there? I mean, the cylinder walls looked really good until we got to this. That's a pretty deep, hard score. It is from something getting inside the cylinder. You know, as far as gas, oil mix, running lean. There's nothing like that going on. This is a foreign object in the wrong place. I shouldn't say foreign object because it might be part of the saw. And it probably is part of the saw because the air filter didn't look compromised. So what I'm going to have to do now is I'm going to have to pressure test this saw before I strip it down and find out what got in the cylinder. If I'm going to try and make a warranty claim, I need to go through all the steps. So I can pull a few more parts out before I get to the actual pressure testing. And because this saw is new to me, I'm trying to organize the parts a little bit more than I normally would. Now, there's a couple things on here that they improved upon that I really like. One of them is that plastic plate right there. That makes accessing the muffler really easy. Another one is this plastic plate right here that is no longer tucked behind the brake handle. That came off real nice. That's our rear anti-vibe mount screw. This is our front anti-vibe mount screw. And you'll notice that there's no wiring harness running from the orange handle down into the crankcase. I had a tight screw on the bottom handle here. And I couldn't break it loose with the Torx bit. But it's one of them screws that was machined to accept a flat tip screwdriver as well. That kind of saved me on that one. The design of this anti-vibe mount down here is similar to previous versions of the T540. This one has now the third generation of auto tune, where you don't have, you have a choke, but they call it a start lever. So auto tune will compensate for full choke and still run. And the idea there, I think, was to alleviate some of the complaints of warm starting issues. So I'm kind of just looking at what's got to come apart here. Also keeping in mind that I still have to pressure test it. It's pretty busy under the hood here. There's a few extra wires. There's a harness that runs off to the side so a guy can plug into the computer or plug in I think a GPS locating module. Throttle cable comes off of there real easy. But there's a lot tucked away inside a small area here. They redesigned this choke lever, which is now the start lever. And it appears initially to be a bit more robust than the last version they had, where a bunch of them broke. It's not a lot more robust, but it looks better. So there's our start lever assembly. I'm just prying off the fuel line right there. And there's our carburetor. A lot of wires on a carburetor, eh? So you see this white plug that I'm pulling out of here? Just remember that plug. It is not symmetrical. It can only go in one way. This is something new to the Mark III. And it's designed to hold that intake boot in shape. So also has another purpose that I'm not aware of. Right now, I'm looking into the throat of that boot, and there's something that's not there that I don't realize it's not there because I've never seen this saw before, and it's not shown in the parts diagram. So how am I supposed to know it's supposed to be there? All right, there's our impulse line. And previous versions, the impulse line sometimes got pulled off the crankcase when the saw was torqued on or flexed real hard. And they've changed that. That line now runs all the way down. There's enough length to it now that should never happen again. So you see the line runs down to the side here. I'm trying to figure out how it comes off the crankcase. But if I just roll the saw over like this, I can easily see where the fitting is on the crankcase for that line. It looks like it's going to be a lot better design. It's good to see that they addressed a lot of the problems we had with the last version. Okay, there's our intake boot. So you'll see on the bench that there are some pieces, like the saw's on top of one right now. A piece of rubber that I used for blocking the exhaust when I pressure tested it. I didn't want this to be an hour-long video, so we didn't show you the whole pressure testing part of this, which doesn't matter. It really doesn't apply in the end here. That's one tight screw for the size of it. This piece I'm spinning out, that's the adapter that went in the spark plug hole that I used when I pressure tested it, and it passed pressure and vacuum tests. I should say, if you plan on doing this, you're going to need an adapter for that intake boot that you probably don't have in your kit right now. Another tight screw. Look at this guy going all manual. There's a screw gun right there. Would be done and be on to the next step already. Must be feeling nostalgic. Okay, there aren't many parts left to this saw. We still haven't found the problem. I'm going to pull the muffler off here. 3 bolts, 2 at the exhaust port and then 1 on the end here. And that bolt was loose because of the pressure testing process. And looking in the exhaust port, things look really nice in there. It's about as clean as you'd expect for a saw that has 6 hours on it. So I want to pull the cylinder head off now and see if there's a foreign object bouncing around inside there. Right now in my head, I was thinking crank bearing, because you can get these kind of results where it's locked up, then you turn it a little bit, and then you get more rotation. Then you turn a little bit more, and then it locks up again. If you got a cage that's bad on a bearing and the balls are moving around in there, you can get those weird results. But there's another reason you can get weird results too. Let's get these screws out of here and see what we got going on. I'm not the strongest guy, but it shouldn't take that much to pull this thing apart. So, that groove that I saw in the cylinder wouldn't have been enough to hold this thing up. Any burr that would have been on that from that groove, I should be able to just torque right through that and pull this apart. But right here's an aha moment. Looking down deep into the intake boot, I can see there's something in there that doesn't belong in there. And actually, it does kind of belong in there, but it doesn't belong down there. And you'll see what I'm talking about in a little bit. Let's pop this boot off of here. And I just didn't want to cut the video here while I went and got a pliers. The dang pliers was sitting right there on the bench. There's something inside the intake, and it's caught between the port and the piston, and it's this little piece of metal.
What is that?
Well, what the heck is that? And I'll tell you, I sent pictures of this to Husqvarna, and I asked them what the heck was that. And the guy that I was speaking with, he didn't know. He didn't recognize it. I mean, the saw is new to them as well. He sent the picture to some coworkers, and they didn't know. And, what are you going to do? They're going to cover the saw under warranty. We're going to get him a new saw. In the meantime, that night, I woke up out of a dream thinking that piece of metal is about the same size as the width of that intake boot. And as it turns out, that piece of metal is some kind of support for the baffle inside the intake boot. And the white plug that you see here, that kind of lines up in front of that metal clip, we're going to call it. And it keeps it from backing out. Now, I looked at this all different ways. Whether a person could assemble this white piece wrong, and you can't, because the big lugs on the outer edges of it are different sizes, and they're keyed to match the carburetor. So if you tried to put it together the wrong way, there'd be a massive air leak, and the saw would have never ran right, if at all. So you can't put it in the wrong way. It had to have been in front of this rubber flap. I think that metal piece just wasn't in place, or it got disturbed during the assembly process. I mean, I don't know what the assembly line looks like. Is there a whole box full of these intake boots with a metal clip hanging on them, and maybe one of them, the clip came off and the person assembling it didn't notice? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't think this is a case where that clip can back off of there if it's put together properly. So all you steel fanboys out there who are pointing fingers at Husqvarna and thinking they got a piece of junk here, I don't think you need to go there. I think this is one of them 1 in 5,000 flukes that they talk about. I mean, we'll find out later if there is an actual problem, but I don't think there is. So that's all I got for you on the Husqvarna T540 Mark III chainsaw with a assembly issue. Thanks for watching. Later.